Hi. She said she was done with secrets. I still remember how she looked when she said it, sitting cross-legged on our worn-out sectional, arms tucked into the sleeves of my old college sweatshirt, that blue one she always stole. The fireplace was going, low and flickering. Outside, the first snow of the season tapped quietly against the window panes. It was the kind of night that makes you want to believe in things. Soft music, wine half finished on the coffee table, her legs tucked under her like she was finally grounded. "I want to be honest now," she said. Her voice was barely louder than the fire. No more hiding. No more anything. And I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her. We'd been off for months. Maybe a year if I was really honest with myself. The kind of slow drift you don't notice until the water's too deep and the shore's out of sight. Little changes at first. The way she started locking her phone when she used to leave it face up without a thought. Her laugh shifting, more forced, quicker, like she was watching herself laugh rather than just doing it. But when she said that, when she looked me in the eye and told me she was ready to drop the veil, I took her hand and said, "Okay." Just like that. No anger. No digging. I gave her the space to tell whatever truth she wanted to tell. She said she'd kept a few things from me. Family debts. Old letters from her father she never opened. A panic attack at work she never told me about. And I nodded, even though I knew that wasn't the whole of it. Something was still buried. I could feel it humming behind her eyes like a taut string waiting to snap. But we moved on. Or tried to. We started cooking together again. Simple meals. Pasta, stews, the kind of things that made the house smell like something warm and real. She started coming to bed earlier. I stopped asking where she was going when she said she needed time alone. We were building something back, I thought. Maybe not what we had before, but something new. Wiser. Weathered. Then one day, the drawer stuck. It was in the old side table we kept in the corner of the guest room. It had belonged to her grandmother, I think. At least, that's what she told me. It had two small drawers on top, both shallow, where we kept spare keys, receipts, junk. I wasn't looking for anything. Just trying to find a warranty card for the ceiling fan that wouldn't stop rattling. The top drawer opened fine. The second one stopped halfway. I figured something had shifted inside and was blocking it. So I jiggled it gently, pulled a little harder, and felt it give, but not in the way I expected. It kept going, past the end of where the drawer should have stopped. It clicked, quietly, and the whole panel slid forward an extra inch. That's when I realized it wasn't just a drawer. It was a compartment. For a second, I froze. My hand hovered over the lip of it. I glanced toward the door, even though I knew she was at work. My chest got tight. I don't know why. I hadn't even seen what was inside yet. But some part of me, some primal part, already knew this was going to change things. Inside, there was a stack of envelopes, bound with a red ribbon. Underneath that, a flash drive in a labeled plastic sleeve. For emergency use only, it read in her handwriting. Neat. Deliberate. Like she'd practiced writing it a few times before deciding on that exact phrasing. I sat on the floor with it all in front of me, the drawer still half open behind me like a wound. The envelopes weren't love letters. They were account statements. Transfer histories. One from a bank in the Cayman Islands, another from a digital currency wallet. The names weren't hers. Not legally, anyway. Different variations of her maiden name. One even used her mother's maiden name. There was a document, folded neatly, notarized. A power of attorney, granted to someone I'd never heard of, dated 7 months ago. I didn't cry. I didn't even get angry. I just read. Slowly. Methodically. The flash drive was last. I brought it into my office, plugged it into the laptop I only used for freelance design gigs. It opened without a password. Inside were scanned documents, PDFs, messages, even a few video files, one with her voice. She was narrating a kind of log. That's the only word I have for it. Explaining what to do if things ever got out of hand. But it wasn't about us. It was about someone else. A name that showed up over and over again, Colin. A name I didn't recognize. At least, not yet. She said she loved him. Said she had to stay with me until everything was secured. That she didn't want to hurt me, but she couldn't walk away empty-handed. That she needed time. That I'd be okay. "I think he knows something's wrong," she said in one of the recordings. "But he won't ask. He's too kind for that. That's what makes it so hard." My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. I just sat there, watching her face on the screen, listening to her voice crack. trying to reconcile the woman I thought I knew with the one confessing to someone else. I shut the laptop, stood up, and stared out the window for a long time. There was a difference between something being over and knowing it's over. I knew it then. I didn't confront her right away. That part might be hard to understand, but if you've ever truly loved someone, really loved them, you know there's a moment when truth hits you like a wave, and instead of thrashing to stay afloat, you just float. You let it hold you. You surrender. I sat in that feeling for 3 days. I went through the motions. Made coffee. Answered emails. Watered the plants. When she came home from work, she kissed me on the cheek, said she was tired, asked if we had any clean towels. I said yes, and handed her one from the dryer. She smiled like she meant it. Maybe she did, in her own way. The fourth morning, I woke up before dawn and stood in the doorway watching her sleep. Hair tangled on the pillow. One arm flung across to my side of the bed, even though we hadn't touched like that in weeks. Maybe months. And I realized I wasn't watching my wife. I was watching a stranger I used to love. The rest of the day, I packed a bag. Not to leave. Not yet. But to be ready. I made digital copies of everything in the drawer. Uploaded the files to cloud storage under a private folder. Sent copies to a lawyer friend I trusted, one who owed me a favor from years back. Told him I might need his advice soon. Nothing urgent, I said. Just contingency planning. That night, she came home late. Said traffic was bad. I nodded, handed her a glass of wine, and asked how her day was. She blinked, surprised. You okay? Yeah, I said. You? She hesitated, then smiled. I think so. We sat on the couch and watched a movie neither of us paid attention to. She curled up next to me like she used to, but there was a stiffness in her spine, like she didn't know if I'd let her. I did. I held her like nothing was broken, because for a little while longer, I needed the illusion to study what was left. She fell asleep with her head on my chest. I stared at the ceiling. The next morning, she left before I woke. A sticky note on the fridge, meeting at 8, back by lunch. Love you. She still dotted the I in love with a tiny heart. I walked into the guest room, slid open the hidden drawer again, and sat cross-legged on the floor like I was in a chapel. I laid out every document like scripture, trying to understand the gospel of betrayal. One envelope I hadn't opened the first time caught my eye. Thicker. I peeled it open slowly, careful not to tear the paper. Inside was a rental agreement for a condo downtown. Signed by her. Co-signed by someone else. Colin. Lease start date, 3 weeks from now. She had a move-out plan. Not a conversation. Not a confrontation. Just a quiet disappearance into someone else's life. That's when I started writing my own plan. I didn't want revenge. I wanted release. I wanted to walk away with dignity, but I also wanted her to understand, on some level, that she hadn't fooled a fool. That I had seen the whole thing and chosen not to scream. The next day, I called the building manager listed on the lease. Said I was her partner, asked about a parking spot. The man on the phone was helpful. Chatty, even. Told me how lovely she and Colin were. Said the unit had a view of the river. I said thank you, hung up, and sat in my car in the driveway for an hour without turning on the ignition. That night, I cooked her favorite meal. Risotto with white wine and Parmesan. She came in the door, looked surprised, even a little suspicious. But she kissed me on the cheek, again. Told me it smelled amazing. I watched her eat every bite, wondering if she tasted the guilt with every spoonful. We talked about a vacation. Somewhere warm, she said. Maybe Belize. Somewhere quiet. I nodded. That sounds perfect. When she went upstairs to shower, I poured myself a drink and walked into my office. Stared at the flash drive, still plugged into the laptop. I hadn't deleted anything. I didn't plan to. I printed one of the photos from the condo lease. Her and Colin, smiling in the background of a real estate agent's selfie. Like a mistake. Like they didn't think twice about being in the shot. I left it on her pillow. No note. No rage. Just truth. She found it the next morning. I was in the kitchen, frying eggs. She walked in barefoot, hair still damp, holding the photo with trembling fingers. Her voice cracked. What is this? I turned off the stove, looked her in the eye. I know. She stood there for a long time, like someone who just realized they'd sleepwalked into traffic. Her lips parted, but she didn't speak. I found the drawer, I said. I know everything. Her whole body sagged. She sat on the floor, back against the cabinet, and for the first time in years, she looked small. Not the woman who wore confidence like perfume. Not the strategist. Just a girl who'd built too many lies to crawl out from under. I was going to tell you, she whispered. I believed her. That's the hardest part. I believed she meant to tell me eventually. But the drawer told me first. And I had already made my decision. She cried. Not right away. At first, she just sat there on the kitchen floor with the photo crumpled in her hand, silent. Maybe she thought if she stayed still long enough, I'd change my mind. Maybe she thought there was still a version of us to salvage. But then I picked up my keys. That's when it hit her. She stood suddenly. Wait. Please. We can talk about this. I paused by the door, backpack already slung over my shoulder. I don't think talking is what we need anymore. Then what do you want? Her voice cracked on the last word. I looked at her, not as my wife, not even as someone who'd betrayed me, but just as a person who made a choice. A long series of small, deliberate choices that led here. To this threshold. To this goodbye. I want peace, I said. And I don't think I can find it in this house anymore. She stepped closer, but not all the way. That hesitation, it said everything. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Colin, he wasn't supposed to be. It's not about him, I interrupted. This stopped being about another man the moment you made plans behind my back. The hidden drawer, the offshore accounts, the lease, it wasn't a mistake. It was a decision. You decided to prepare for a future without me while still sleeping in our bed. She folded her arms like she was cold, but I knew it wasn't the weather. It was the realization that I'd finally seen her fully and didn't flinch. You never asked, she said quietly. You never fought. I kept waiting for you to say something. I didn't want to lie. I just didn't want to ruin everything. You didn't ruin everything, I said. You just told me the truth in a language I couldn't unhear. I opened the door. The air outside was crisp and still. My car waited in the driveway. No grand exit. Just a clean one. I'll have the papers sent, I said. She covered her mouth. So that's it. That's it. I stepped outside and closed the door gently behind me. Not with anger. Not with finality. Just quietly. The way something ends when it's already been ending for a long, long time. I drove without music. Just the sound of tires on pavement and my own breathing. I didn't go to a hotel. I went to my brother's cabin, 2 hours north, where the cell reception cuts out before you reach the end of the road. I stayed there for 3 weeks. I didn't tell anyone where I was. I let the silence stretch out and fill all the empty spaces in me. I wrote in a journal I found in a drawer. Nothing dramatic. Just little things. The way the lake looked at sunrise. The sound of snow on the roof. The memory of the night she first told me she loved me. How scared she looked, like even saying it out loud was dangerous. Eventually, the legal stuff moved forward. She didn't contest anything. Maybe she knew better than to try. Maybe she was too tired to pretend anymore. The house was sold. I let her keep the furniture. I didn't want any of it. It was all just noise from a life that didn't mean what I thought it did. Months passed. One day, I got a letter in the mail with no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Her handwriting. I found the drawer years ago in my grandmother's house. She told me it was for love letters. I used it for lies. I'm sorry. No signature. No plea. Just that. I folded it once and placed it inside the same notebook I'd been writing in at the cabin. A record of truths, finally. Even hers. People ask me now if I'd ever take her back. If I'd ever forgive. I tell them forgiveness isn't about going backward. It's about letting go of the weight that keeps you from walking forward. So, no, I don't hate her. I just don't carry her with me anymore. The drawer is gone. The secrets are ashes. And me? I'm still learning how to trust the quiet again. But I'm getting there. Bye-bye.